Rain streaked down the restaurant windows as Haley Carter pushed through the revolving door, shaking droplets from her black dress. 12 hours in the ER had left her drained, but she'd promised her best friend one drink. "You need a life, Haley." The host led her through white tablecloths and soft jazz until she saw him, dark hair catching city light like silver fragments. He looked up, and something in his gray eyes made time stutter. "Haley Carter." His voice was low, almost cautious. She nodded, brushing rain from her hair. "Sorry I'm late. There was an accident on the bridge," and he stood, pulling out her chair with quiet precision. "I'm used to waiting." The way he said it felt intentional, like it meant something else entirely. She sat down, forcing a laugh. "I don't usually look like I've been hit by a storm." "You look fine." Silence followed, too deliberate to be awkward. He studied her like he was cataloging details he already knew. "So Liam, right?" "My friend said you're in consulting?" "Something like that." "It's vague." His lips twitched. "It keeps things simple." "For who?" "For both of us. Maybe." There was a stillness about him that wasn't arrogance. It was control, like he'd spent years mastering the art of saying nothing. "You're not much of a talker, are you?" "I talk when it matters. And does this matter?" He looked at her directly. "It might." The waiter returned. Haley chose pasta and red wine. Liam asked for coffee, black. When the waiter left, she tilted her head. "Coffee at dinner. You're either a workaholic or secretly a detective." "Neither. Just someone who doesn't want to fall asleep yet. Big day tomorrow. Big night tonight." The words lingered. Haley tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, trying to ignore how a stranger's gaze could make her chest tighten. "Ah! So, is this your usual routine? Dinners with exhausted nurses and rain for background music?" His eyes softened, amusement flickering. "Not exactly. This is new for me." "A blind date?" "A chance," he corrected. She smiled. "You're full of cryptic answers." "You know that? You talk like a spy. You think too much. It's part of the job." "I deal with people who stop breathing for a living." Something in his eyes changed. Admiration, maybe? Or gratitude. That sounds hard. It is. But it's what I'm good at. He nodded slowly, as if he already knew. "You must see a lot of people at their worst." "Sometimes. But sometimes I see them when they remember what it means to live." He smiled faintly. "You've always been like that? Always?" She frowned. "We just met." He looked away, his jaw tightening. "Not exactly. What do you mean?" He didn't answer immediately. The rain outside had grown heavier, drumming against the glass like a heartbeat. He leaned forward, elbows resting lightly on the table. "You don't remember me, do you?" The words dropped between them, like a match striking. Haley blinked. "Remember you?" He didn't move, didn't smile, didn't explain. He just looked at her with the calm of someone who'd waited years for this moment. Everything else in the restaurant faded. The chatter, the laughter, the music. Till there was only the rain and the weight of his gaze. Her heartbeat faltered. Something familiar stirred inside her. A feeling without a name. Whoever this man was. He wasn't a stranger. Not entirely. She just didn't know why yet. The sound of rain still echoed in Liam, across his mind long after he left the restaurant. He had watched Haley walk away, confusion written across her face, and he knew she didn't remember. Not yet. His penthouse stretched wide and glassy, every surface reflecting success and solitude. He loosened his tie, crossing to where a single-framed photograph rested on the grand piano. An old hospital hallway. St. Mary's Clinic etched on the wall. He walked to his study and pulled out a small metal tin. Inside lay a faded hospital wristband. The plastic worn in CRA-CKEDH Carter. He turned it over in his hands like something fragile. Memories surged uninvited. He was 17 again, shivering under a flickering streetlight on the outskirts of Columbus, Ohio. The car he'd called home sat wrecked in a ditch, windshield shattered. His right arm bled where glass had cut deep, but the pain barely registered. All he felt was exhaustion and hunger. He'd been living in that car for weeks after his mother died. After the last eviction notice, after his father vanished with the last $20 they had, the next thing he remembered was waking under harsh fluorescent lights. His arm was bandaged. A young woman was leaning over him, her hair tied back, face pale under the flicker of emergency bulbs. She couldn't have been older than 19. "Her badge," said student nurse. "Hey," she'd said softly. "You're not broken, just lost. That's fixable." He'd laughed then, a dry, bitter sound, but her tone had cut through the numbness. She fed him crackers from a vending machine and stayed long after her shift ended. He'd fallen asleep to the sound of her humming, a quiet tune that reminded him of safety. When he woke again, she was gone. Replaced by an empty chair and a folded note under a cup of water, "Get better. Keep going, HC." He kept that wristband ever since. It was proof that once in his life, someone had seen him not as a problem, but as a person. Years later, when the first prototype of his health tech device succeeded and investors lined up, he thought of that girl with the tired eyes and the calm voice. He built Cross Innovations on the principle she'd given him: help people before they disappear. And now, 10 years later, fate had seated him across from her at a restaurant. Haley Carter. The name had been etched into his memory long before the fortune. Long before the world decided to pay attention, he poured himself water and looked out across the skyline. Every detail of the evening replayed itself. The way she'd brushed rain from her hair, the faint tremor in her voice when he said the words she wasn't ready to hear. People forget moments that save them, but the saved never forget. His phone buzzed. A reminder about tomorrow's board meeting. He turned it face down. He had spent years building an empire on empathy, while forgetting how to use it for himself. He opened his laptop, searching her name. St. Vincent's Medical Center, Brooklyn. Her picture appeared. Smiling, tired, alive, he made a decision quietly. Tomorrow he would visit St. Vincent, not as a billionaire donor, but as a man looking for the piece of himself that never healed. He slipped the wristband into his jacket pocket, the plastic cool against his fingers. Outside, the last of the rain slowed. The city exhaled. He whispered to the empty room as if she could hear him across the miles. "You said I wasn't broken. You were right. I was just waiting to find the reason to keep going." The next morning arrived gray and cold. Haley stood by the hospital vending machine, sipping bad coffee. The night shift had bled into morning again. She hadn't stopped long enough to think about the man from last night, but his voice kept coming back. "You don't remember me, do you?" The intercom buzzed, calling her to the lobby. When she arrived, the chief of staff was standing with a small group of suited people. In the middle of them was Liam Cross, though she didn't know him by that name yet. He wore a charcoal coat, no tie, the same calm expression from dinner. "Miss Carter," the chief said, smiling. "This is Mr. Krause. His foundation is evaluating potential partnerships with St. Vincent. He wanted to see our emergency unit." Haley blinked. "Of course, welcome," Liam nodded politely. "We meet again." She managed a thin smile. "So, your consulting includes hospitals now?" "Something like that. May I?" He gestured toward the hallway, and she led the group through corridors that smelled of antiseptic and adrenaline. She explained procedures, triage systems, funding shortages. He asked questions no donor usually asked, the kind that showed he understood what nurses faced when supplies ran short. When the group moved ahead, he lingered near a doorway, eyes tracing the gurneys and monitors as if they were relics from a past life. "You look like you've been here before," she said lightly. "Maybe I have. You're full of riddles." "Mr. Cross, only when I'm standing in familiar places." He smiled faintly and joined the others before she could respond. Hours later, after the tour ended, Haley sat in the break room when a commotion erupted near the nurses' station. Someone had fainted in the hallway. She rushed out and stopped. Short Liam lay on the floor. Pale, breathing shallowly, she knelt beside him. Pressing 2 fingers to his neck, "Give me room." They lifted him onto a gurney and wheeled him into the observation bay. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused. "You," he whispered. "Stay with me. I'm right here." She attached the monitor leads. You're dehydrated, probably low blood sugar. When was your last meal? He didn't answer. His gaze stayed locked on her face. You saved me again. She froze, staring down at him. What did you just say? But he had already slipped back into half-consciousness, lips forming words she couldn't catch. When Liam's vitals stabilized, Haley stepped into the hallway trying to steady her hands. The chief of staff approached. He's insisting he's fine. Claims it was exhaustion. The man works too much. Haley nodded. He should rest for a few hours at least. When she returned, Liam was sitting up, jacket draped over his lap. You didn't have to stay, he said. You're my patient now. It's my job. You said that once before. She stopped adjusting the foredrip. What? Nothing? He shifted, grimacing slightly. Thank you, Haley. She pulled up a chair, folding her arms. You need to tell me what you meant out there. You saved me again. What does that mean? He looked at her for a long moment, then reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out something small and faded, a hospital wristband. He held it up so she could see the Lettersh, Carter. 10 years ago, he said quietly. St. Mary's Clinic, Columbus, Ohio. I was 17, homeless, bleeding out in the back of a wrecked car. You were a student nurse. You stayed with me when you didn't have to. You fed me crackers. You told me I wasn't broken, just lost. Haley's breath caught. Her mind raced backward, sifting through exhaustion and late shifts and hundreds of faces she'd tried to save. Then it clicked. The boy with the hollowed eyes. The one who'd flinched when she touched his shoulder. The one who'd thanked her in a whisper so broken it had stayed with her for weeks. You, she breathed. Me. She stared at him, disbelief crashing into recognition. You're that boy I am. You were just a kid. You had nothing. And now you're a billionaire? He smiled faintly. Funny how life works. She stood abruptly, pacing the small room. Why didn't you tell me at dinner? Why the games? Because I needed to know if you'd remember on your own. If that night meant as much to you as it did to me. Of course it did. Her voice cracked. I think about the people I lose, Liam. The ones I can't save. But I also think about the ones who make it. The ones who walk out of those doors alive. You were one of them. He looked down at the wristband. I built everything on what you gave me that night. Hope. A reason to keep breathing. She sat back down slowly, her anger softening into something raw and aching. You could have found me sooner. I didn't know if you'd want to be found. Or if I was just another face you'd forgotten. I didn't forget. Her voice was barely a whisper. I just didn't know it was you. For a moment they sat in silence, the hum of monitors filling the space between them. Then Liam reached for her hand. His fingers were warm, steady. I came back to thank you, Haley. But now that I'm here, I don't want to leave. She looked at their hands, then at his face. What are you saying? I'm saying I've spent 10 years trying to repay a debt I can never repay. But maybe it was never about debt. Maybe it was always about this. Her heartbeat quickened. About what? About finding you again? Before she could respond, the door burst open. A nurse rushed in, breathless. Dr. Carter, we have a mass casualty incoming. Bridge collapse. Every available hand on deck. Haley stood immediately, her instincts taking over. She looked back at Liam. Stay here. Rest. Haley, I mean it. She was gone before he could finish. Hours blurred into chaos. Haley worked through blood and screams and shattered bones. She lost track of time, of exhaustion, of everything except the next patient, the next pulse, the next breath. When the last ambulance left and the ER finally quieted, she collapsed into a chair in the break room. Her scrubs stained, her hands shaking, the door opened. Liam walked in, pale but upright. You're supposed to be resting, she said weakly. I couldn't just sit there. Want to sit beside her. Are you okay? She laughed bitterly. I don't know anymore. He reached into his coat and pulled out an envelope. He set it on the table between them. What's this? A check. $5 million. For St. Vincent's new equipment. Staff raises. Whatever you need, She stared at it, then at him. Liam, you don't have to. I want to. Why? Because you saved me once. And now, I want to save the place that gave you to me. Tears blurred her vision. She tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. Liam stood, leaning down to press a soft kiss to her forehead. Get some rest, Haley. He walked toward the door, then paused. There's something else you should know. She looked up. Your hospital is being sold. The board finalized it yesterday. New ownership takes over in 2 weeks. Her blood ran cold. And the new owner plans to gut the ER, turn it into luxury medical suites for private clients. Who's buying it? Liam's jaw tightened. His silence was answer enough. Haley stood slowly, realization dawning like a knife to the chest. It's you. He didn't deny it. You're the one taking this place away from us. The silence in the break room was deafening. Haley stared at Liam, her chest heaving, the envelope on the table suddenly feeling like poison. Say something, she whispered. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. Her voice cracked. Tell me why the man who supposedly owes me everything just bought the hospital I've bled for and plans to destroy it. Liam stepped forward, hands raised. I'm not destroying it. I'm restructuring it. Restructuring. She laughed bitterly. That's what billionaires call it when they rip the heart out of something and sell it for parts. That's not fair. Fair. She shoved the envelope back toward him. You came here pretending to care, pretending this was about gratitude. But it was always about business, wasn't it? You were scouting the place before you gutted it. No, his voice was firm. I came here for you, and you just happened to buy my hospital? I bought it because it's failing, Haley. The board was going to sell to a private equity firm that would have shut it down completely. I'm trying to save it by firing half the staff, by turning the ER into a spa for rich people, by making it sustainable. He moved closer, desperation creeping into his tone. This place is drowning in debt. If I don't change the model, there won't be a hospital left to fight for. Shh. She backed away, shaking her head. You don't get it. This isn't about profit margins or investor returns. This is about the people who come through those doors with nothing. The ones who can't afford luxury suites. The ones like you. He flinched. Yeah. Her voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Like you. That scared kid bleeding out in a car. Where would he go now, Liam? Where would 17-year-old you go when your hospital only serves people who can pay? I haven't forgotten where I came from, haven't you? She stepped forward, eyes blazing. Because it looks like you traded your soul for a penthouse view. The words hung between them like broken glass. Liam's jaw clenched. I'm trying to help, then stop the sale. I can't. Why not? Because it's already done? The contracts are signed. The board voted. It's final. She felt something inside her snap. Get out, Haley, I said. Get out. He stared at her, pain etched across his face. Then he turned and walked toward the door. He stopped at the threshold, his back to her. I never wanted to hurt you, but you did. He left without another word. Haley sank into the chair, staring at the envelope. $5 million. Hush money. A Band-Aid on a bullet wound? She shoved it into the trash. The next 2 weeks passed in a haze. Haley threw herself into her work, ignoring the whispers, the rumors, the worried glances from her colleagues. The staff had been told about the sale. Half of them had already started looking for new jobs. She avoided Liam's calls, deleted his messages, refused to see him when he showed up at the hospital. But she couldn't stop thinking about him, about the boy he'd been, the man he'd become, the choice he'd made. Late one night, alone in the ER, she found herself standing in the same hallway where he'd collapsed. She closed her eyes, remembering his whispered words. You saved me again. Had she? Or had she just delayed the inevitable? Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Meet me at the restaurant. One last time, please. She almost deleted it. But something made her stop. An hour later, She walked through the revolving door into the same restaurant where it had all started. Rain streaked the windows again, like the universe was playing on repeat. Liam sat at the same table, alone, staring out at the city lights. She crossed to him, arms folded. "You have 5 minutes." He stood. "I'm pulling out of the deal." She blinked. "What?" "I'm walking away. Forfeiting the purchase. The hospital stays independent." "Why?" "Because you were right." His voice was raw. "I became the thing I swore I'd never be. Someone who forgets where he came from." She sat down slowly, suspicion warring with hope. "What's the catch?" "No catch. But there is a cost. Which is everything." He smiled faintly. "Walking away from this deal tanks my reputation. My board will revolt. My investors will pull out. I'll lose half my company by morning, then why do it?" He looked at her, and for the first time, she saw the boy he'd been. Scared. Lost. Human. Because some debts can't be paid with money. And some people are worth more than empires. Tears burned her eyes. "Liam, I'm not asking for forgiveness," he said quickly. "I just needed you to know that you were right. About all of it." She reached across the table, taking his hand. "You're an idiot." He laughed a broken sound. "I know. And you're going to regret this. Probably." She squeezed his fingers. "But you're also the bravest person I've ever met." His eyes widened. "You're giving up everything," she whispered. "For people you've never met. For a place that can't pay you back. I'm giving it up for you." The words settled between them. Heavy and true. She stood, pulling him to his feet. "Then don't do it alone." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we rebuild it together. Your money. My expertise. A real partnership? You do that? After everything? You made a mistake, Liam, but you're fixing it. That's more than most people ever do." Pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. "I don't deserve you," no, she whispered, "but you're stuck with me anyway." He kissed her then, soft and desperate. It's like a man who'd been drowning and finally found air. When they pulled apart, she saw the fear in his eyes. "What happens now?" She smiled. "Now we fight like hell." The next morning, Liam walked into the Cross Innovations boardroom knowing it would be the last time. 12 faces stared at him across polished mahogany. Investors, executives, people who'd helped him build an empire. People who were about to watch him burn it down. "Gentlemen," he said calmly, "I'm withdrawing from the St. Vincent. Acquisition, silence, then chaos. It can't be. Serious. We've invested millions in due diligence. This will tank our stock price." Liam raised a hand. "I know what it costs. I'm doing it anyway." The lead investor stood, face red. "Then you're out. Effective immediately. We're calling an emergency vote to remove you as CEO." Liam nodded. "I expected that. You're throwing away everything you built. For what? A failing hospital? For something more important than profit. And what's that?" Liam looked at each of them in turn. Integrity. He walked out of the boardroom and didn't look back. By noon, the news had spread. Cross Innovations stock dropped 18%. By evening, Liam had been officially removed from his own company. By midnight, headlines called it the biggest self-destruction in tech history. Haley found him on the roof of St. Vincent's. Staring out at the city. "I heard," she said quietly. "It's done." Shh. She moved beside him. "Any regrets?" He smiled faintly. "Ask me in a year. I'm serious." He turned to her. "So am I. I don't know what happens next, Haley. I just burned every bridge I had. I'm not a billionaire anymore. I'm just a guy with a lot of enemies and a half-baked plan." "Good," she said. "Billionaires are overrated anyway." He laughed, the sound genuine this time. She took his hand. "We'll figure it out. Together, you keep saying that, 'cause I mean it." He pulled her close, breathing in the scent of hospital soap and rain. "I love you, you know." She froze, then looked up at him. "You do?" "I think I have since I was 17. I just didn't know what to call it." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "You're such an idiot. I know. I love you too." He kissed her, slow and deep, like they had all the time in the world. When they pulled apart, she smiled. So what now? Now? He glanced back at the hospital. Now we save this place the right way. No shortcuts. No buyouts. Just hard work and hope. Sounds impossible. Good thing we're both stubborn, she laughed. The sound bright against the night sky. 6 months later, St. Vincent's emergency room reopened with new equipment, a full staff, and a waiting list of donors inspired by the story of the billionaire who gave it all away. Liam stood in the hallway where he'd once collapsed, watching Haley work. She moved with the same calm precision he remembered from 10 years ago, saving lives like it was the only thing that mattered. She glanced up, catching his eye, and smiled. He smiled back. He'd lost a fortune, but he'd found something worth infinitely more. A second chance, a purpose, a home. That night, they sat together on the roof, the city glowing beneath them like a constellation of second chances. Do you ever miss it? She asked. The money, the power. He thought for a moment. Sometimes. But then I remember what it cost. Who I was becoming, and who are you now? He looked at her, this woman who'd saved him twice, in all the ways that mattered. I'm the man you believed I could be. She rested her head on his shoulder. Good answer. They sat in silence, watching the city breathe. Somewhere below, an ambulance wailed. Someone's worst day. Someone's last chance. And inside St. Vincent's, the lights stayed on. Because some things were worth fighting for. Some people were worth saving. And some love stories began not with a first meeting, but with a second one, a reunion neither of them knew they needed, until it was everything, the end.